You should not leave me there like this.
I am scared that you might hurt me. It hurts me when you are too far from me.
Sir, what happened? Can you see me? Sarah murmured in deep bewilderment as she knelt beside him. The sight before her was nothing short of alarming. The man was severely wounded, a bullet lodged into his waist, and the relentless rain had already begun to wash away the blood that streamed from his body. She instantly understood the gravity of the situation, realizing that if she left him there even for a short while, he would inevitably succumb to the massive loss of blood. Sarah paused, not for a minute, nor even for a second, but for a fleeting moment so brief it could barely be measured. And in that instant, her mind made a decision that overruled fear. Without wasting another heartbeat, she quickly grabbed him, pulling his arm over her shoulders while supporting his wounded waist tightly with one hand to prevent further bleeding. He was far too heavy, his body firm and unyielding. Yet Sarah gathered every ounce of strength within her and dragged him forward, determined to get him to safety as quickly as possible. Fortunately, her house was situated at a distance, and her neighbors lived far enough away that no one would notice the commotion unfolding in the rain. Even as she struggled, she kept speaking to him, urging him to stay conscious, her voice trembling yet persistent in its effort to keep him tethered to life. The moment she reached home, she carefully settled him onto the couch and immediately dialed 911. But before the call could even connect, she abruptly cut it. Her thoughts spiraled rapidly, and she could not ignore the fact that the man had been chased by a group of rogues. He could be an innocent victim, or he might be one of them. She paused again, caught between logic and instinct, but her mind quickly reasoned that none of that mattered at the moment. However, another harsh reality struck her. She was a college student, and if the authorities found her with a bullet-injured stranger in her house, it would create a scandal, dragging her into unnecessary attention that could damage her future. Despite this, the urgency of saving his life weighed heavily on her conscience, forcing her to act swiftly without allowing hesitation to take control. In that brief span of time, she chose to call the only person she trusted enough to handle such a situation. After a couple of rings, the call was answered, and Sarah, unable to steady her voice, began to blabber in panic. "Aunt, this is Sarah. I need help. Please, I want your help," she stammered, her words rushing over one another. "Sarah, my darling, what happened? You sound extremely nervous. Is everything all right?" The voice on the other end asked, filled with concern. "No, Aunt. There's someone in my house. He's badly injured. Please send me an ambulance," she pleaded desperately. "There's someone in your house? Should I call 911? Wait, darling, I'm coming there immediately," the woman responded, her tone turning urgent. "No, please, just send me an ambulance," Sarah cried, her voice breaking under pressure. "All right, wait, honey. I'm sending an ambulance and I'm on my way to your house as well," she assured before ending the call. Within 15 minutes, an ambulance from the city's major healthcare center arrived, and Sarah stood there, overwhelmed and unable to move even an inch away from the man. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably, and for reasons she could not explain, his face seemed strangely familiar to her, as though she had seen him somewhere before. The pain of witnessing him in such a brutally injured and unconscious state caused her stomach to churn uneasily. Moments later, a luxury car arrived behind the ambulance, and from it stepped a woman in her 30s, dressed impeccably and carrying herself with the authority of a seasoned doctor. The moment Sarah saw her, she rushed forward and embraced her tightly, seeking comfort in her presence. "Honey, are you okay?" the woman asked, her voice steady yet filled with concern. Sarah was too overwhelmed to respond and simply clung to her, breaking down into tears as she struggled to find her words. The woman quickly signaled the medical team to proceed, and they rushed inside, bringing the man out in his severely wounded state. The moment Dr. Maya Nolan laid her eyes on him, she froze briefly, unable to ignore the strange familiarity his face carried. "He looks vaguely familiar to me," she murmured softly, almost to herself. The man was quickly taken into the ambulance, and Sarah stood there, staring at him in silence. Just as the doors were about to close, she suddenly cried out for them to wait, her voice cutting through the tension. Everyone paused, and Maya looked at her with confusion as Sarah stepped forward. "Please let me come with you, Aunt. I don't want to leave him alone," she said, her voice softer now but filled with determination. "Do you know this man?" Maya asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. "No. I'm not sure, but please take me with you," Sarah pleaded. Without further hesitation, Maya nodded, and everything moved swiftly. She offered Sarah a seat in her car, but Sarah refused, and instead climbed into the ambulance itself, choosing to stay beside the injured man, a decision that silently unsettled Maya more than she showed. The ambulance sped through the rain, and within 15 minutes they reached Nolan's healthcare facility, where the atmosphere immediately turned tense. The man was rushed into the intensive care unit, and Maya followed closely behind. Hours passed, though Sarah could not tell how many. Time seemed to blur between anxiety and anticipation. When Maya finally stepped out, there was a faint trace of hope on her face, though Sarah remained visibly nervous. The moment she saw her aunt, she rushed forward. "Is he okay?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with fear. "Sarah, first tell me, who is he? How do you know him?" Maya asked firmly. Sarah hesitated, knowing her aunt would not move forward without answers, and so she quickly explained everything that had happened, keeping it as brief as possible. "Sarah, you saved someone being chased by rogues? You should have called the police. This is dangerous for you," Maya scolded. Sarah fell silent for a moment before softly responding. "No, Aunt. He doesn't seem dangerous to me." At that instant, a memory flickered in her mind, recalling the dream she had the previous night, where the man had appeared vividly, his presence intense, his touch firm, and his gaze unforgettable, as though that fleeting dream had left a mark deep within her. "Honey, you're just like your father. I've always told him that too much kindness can lead us into trouble." Maya sighed. Just then, a hospital attendant approached and handed over the bill, and as Sarah looked at it, she realized that it amounted to her entire life savings. Before she could react, Maya took the bill from her hands and firmly stated that she would cover the expenses. However, Sarah immediately held her aunt's hand in protest, insisting that she would pay it herself, explaining that she was no longer someone special in that place, and that she needed to follow the rules. Despite Maya's attempts to convince her otherwise, Sarah remained resolute, stating that she would take the money back once the man regained consciousness. With no other option, Maya reluctantly agreed. "Take care, child. You are acting far too mature for your age, but remember, you are still a child in my eyes. I don't want you getting into trouble, and no matter what, the doors are always open for you," Maya said softly as she caressed Sarah's hair, both of them holding back tears. "Aunt, can I see him?" Sarah asked hesitantly. Maya's expression hardened slightly as she replied, "I hope this will be your last meeting with him. Remember what I said?" Sarah nodded quietly and walked into the unit where the man lay unconscious, though his vitals had stabilized. She sat beside him, unable to take her eyes off him, and without realizing it, her hand moved closer to his. "I know you," she whispered softly, her voice barely audible. "I thought you were just my imagination, but forget it. I just hope nothing like this ever happens to you again," she added, lowering her gaze. Suddenly, to her shock, the man, still regaining consciousness, gripped her hand tightly. Sarah froze, startled by the sudden contact, and tried to pull away, but his grip was strong and unyielding, holding her delicate hand firmly within his powerful grasp. The sensation triggered a vivid recollection of her dream, where he had held her in the exact same way, with an intensity that she could neither understand nor resist. "Please, leave," she pleaded, her voice trembling. Gradually, his grip loosened, and the moment she felt the slightest release, Sarah withdrew her hand and immediately rushed out of the unit. As she stepped outside, her rapid breathing slowly began to steady, though the fear and confusion within her continued to linger, leaving her unable to speak of it to anyone except the man who lay inside, suspended between consciousness and silence. For 2 days it had been raining relentlessly. Sarah Nolan sat by the window of her room, her gaze fixed on the cloud-laden sky that refused to yield even a single ray of sunlight. Classes had been cancelled for the past 2 days, and given the stubborn mood of the weather, she knew it would continue for at least another week. Her room was engulfed in a dense, almost suffocating silence, accompanied by an unsettling chill that lingered in the air. The temperature had dropped steadily, yet Sarah refused to wear thermals, choosing comfort over warmth within the confines of her home. Though her examinations were approaching, she found herself unwilling to prepare, surrendering instead to a strange sense of detachment. Wrapping her arms around herself, she held on as though seeking solace in her own embrace. The house felt unbearably empty. There was no one to talk to, no voice to break the silence. As her eyes slowly drifted shut, Sarah slipped, almost unknowingly, into a deep yet fleeting slumber. The rain outside seemed to cradle her into that sleep, as though the weather itself had conspired to grant her a moment of escape. In that quiet unconsciousness, even her own breathing faded into oblivion. It was an eerie, eternal stillness. Then a touch, soft yet firm, gentle yet undeniably present. Sarah felt it, an unfamiliar yet strangely comforting sensation. It began at her shoulder, a slow, deliberate caress that sent a quiet warmth through her. She relaxed into it, her body yielding as though it recognized that touch. The hand moved upward, brushing through her hair with an almost possessive tenderness. And then, a kiss. Warm, deep, gentle. It rested upon her head with a quiet intimacy that stirred something within her soul. Though her eyes remained closed, she felt it, truly felt it. A faint smile curved upon her lips, a rare and genuine expression that had not graced her face in years. "You should not leave me there like this." The voice was low, dominant, yet laced with an unexpected softness. "I am scared that you might hurt me," Sarah murmured, her voice barely audible. "It hurts me when you are too far from me." The unseen presence lifted her chin, and in the next fleeting moment, his lips brushed against hers. And just like that, she woke up. Her eyes snapped open as she looked around her room in confusion. There was no one, nothing but silence and the lingering echo of that moment. Yet, the sensation remained. Her fingers trembled as she touched her lips. It felt real. Too real. "Please, Sarah, don't do this. You're just 19. These thoughts, they're wrong. If Dad were alive, he would be disappointed." Her heart cried out those words, though her lips refused to utter them. And with that, the memory of that mysterious man resurfaced once more. Her heartbeat quickened, wild, uncontrollable, as though something deep within her was pulling her toward him. The urge was overpowering. Before she could even process it, she found herself rising, slipping into a jacket, preparing to step out. No, I shouldn't meet him. He's nothing but a rogue. I shouldn't give importance to someone who exists only in my dreams. This is wrong. She tried to resist. Truly, she did. But resistance proved futile. Within 20 minutes, she found herself standing inside the hospital. "Oh my God. What have you done, Sarah? Just one visit, and then you leave. That's it. Please let Aunt not be here." Her thoughts tangled within her mind as she covered herself with a jacket and cap, cautiously stepping forward to catch a glimpse of the man. To her astonishment, he was awake. No longer lost in a coma, he sat upright on the bed. Around him stood a group of men, dressed entirely in black, engaged in a serious discussion. His expression was firm, calculating, yet composed. But he was alive, and that was all she had come to see. For a brief moment, Sarah forgot everything. Herself, her surroundings, even the reason she was there. Her gaze lingered on him. Slowly her racing heart began to settle, as though it had finally found what it had been searching for. A faint smile appeared on her lips, unbidden and unaware. She studied him closely. His physique was striking, muscular, defined, exuding raw strength. His presence alone commanded attention. He appeared to be in his late 20s, carrying an aura that was both intimidating and irresistibly captivating. Anyone could fall for him at first sight. And perhaps she already had. As she stood there, lost in silent admiration, his eyes suddenly shifted, locking onto her presence beyond the door. "Who's that?" His voice cut through the air, deep, commanding, and sharp enough to send a chill down her spine. The men beside him reacted instantly, rushing toward the door. Sarah froze for a fraction of a second. Then she ran. Without hesitation, without looking back, she disappeared before they could reach her. By the time the door was opened, she was gone. "Maybe someone came here by mistake, boss," one of them said. The man fell silent once more. "So, you're telling me I was saved by a young girl, possibly in her 20s? He asked, his tone laced with curiosity. "Yes, boss. She seems to be close to Dr. Nolan, but the doctor refused to give us any details. Also, that girl paid all your medical bills on the very first day." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Paid my bills?" A slow, amused smile curved his lips. "Yes, boss." "Looks like I owe a kid," he muttered, before letting out a deep, amused laugh. "What's her name, Charlie?" "From the documents. Her name is Sarah." "Sarah?" He repeated the name softly, as though tasting it for the first time. It felt strangely pleasant. "Find out everything about her. I want to meet the girl who saved my life." "Yes, boss." "Sarah, you have no idea whom you saved, but I will find you, wherever you are." The thought settled firmly in his mind. Meanwhile, Sarah walked back through the relentless rain, completely drenched. Her steps slowed as reality began to catch up with her. "I spent all my savings on his medical bills. How am I going to pay my university fees now? I should have asked him for the money. But how could I? Dad would never approve of that. What am I supposed to do now?" Frustration surged within her. "I need a job. I have to earn. There's no other way." And just then, her eyes fell upon a grand, luxurious lodge. A sign hung at the entrance. "We are hiring." Her face lit up instantly. "Thank you, Lord. You really heard my prayer." With renewed hope, she rushed inside.